Okay. All right. So this is a newbie talk, and it's very low level. I don't have actually a full script written out, but I was interested in the concept of what kind of steps and pieces are floating around when you're planning to write a script. My example is this thing called pinglogger, and I'll jump into that. Let's see. Okay, so this can be done with either, obviously on the left, Linux, or on the right, lower right there, with Windows. What somebody got me interested in was if you could extract these values, let's say like in the Linux one on the top right, the time equals 90.1 milliseconds. If you could pull these into an array and say you had it run either 3 pings to make sure one of your servers was up, or 10 in a row, and then in the end output them either to a comma separated values, which is kind of the simplest, to just have it append one line of text to a CSV or comma separated values file, which is just flat text, or to output it to MySQL would be the ideal, to put it into a database. So these are a little different. Linux will just keep running. As you can see, there's a little Control-C there where the red arrow is. Windows will just run 3 by default. And I don't want to use too much time, but so the script, as you see up here, you could actually have one called pinglogger setup, which would create a non-interactive pinglogger.py. Let me just go to the next one here. So the one that it interactively sets up or creates the script for you could ask what is the command line or path to the program that you'd be using, and if you wanted to set any flags, such as this -n10 would only do 10 and then quit. And with Linux, you can actually do -c and then a number, such as I have here user bin ping -c10, which would only run 10 and then quit. This is useful, of course, if you have, let me jump to the last slide here. If you are automating this and having it run hourly with Linux, either using this thing called cron, or with Windows, this very fun task scheduler, which you can see in the lower right there, is not very fun to set up. You have to give it full paths and tell it when to run, things like that. So back to this. Okay, so the concept of taking apart what's called standard out, or the standard output from ping. Let's say you, with your Python script, do the equivalent of grep, which is look for a line that says reply, and then you want to break it on either the fields or the equal sign, and on the right-hand side on the milliseconds. So you would use 2 field separators in order to isolate, in this example, that 18 milliseconds to get just the number 18. In Linux, there's a very beautiful cut command, which you just say -f for field 2, -d for delimiter, etc. Or you can use a delimiter of ms for milliseconds. Just skipping back a little bit, sorry about that. If you wanted this to run non-interactively, there is actually a way for a Python script to accept command line flags. So you could have something like -ni to not run interactively, and not actually, ask the user, hey, where's ping on your system? Do you want flags? All that stuff. The other option of, if you had this pinglogger setup program, as a last step, it could spit all the text out into a new script and make one for you that would run, obviously, non-interactively. And I believe you use this 3 apostrophes to output all the text. I don't know how you would escape the variables, but maybe that's for another talk. Okay, so back to cut. The Pythonic equivalent is actually, this is how it works with Linux, and then with Python, you can use split and you tell it the delimiter in quotes there is the colon, and then 1 would be this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's one way to do it. And then this for loop with line in open, you would actually somehow use standard out or whatever the output of the, let's say 10 pings in a row, and then work on it as a basically a text file in the RAM. And further with parsing standard out, actually there's another way to do it. This is kind of a cheat. You could do os.system and just use the Linux commands to get at the output, but that's probably not the best way to do this. I just thought that was interesting that you can kind of escape the Python script and use other command line commands. So this is more of how to do the standard out processing. It looks like kind of a lot, but it basically, this is the OS way of doing it. It looks like they're still doing their wget, or in my case, it would be, ping, pipe it through grep, pipe it through cut. Not the ideal way to do it. So it looks like grep in Python is this RE, a regular expression, dot find all. And I guess you would look for the word reply case sensitive so that you get just those parts of the standard output. And let's see. This is, okay, and then lastly, let's say you get your values into an array with, let's say 100 milliseconds, 90, 120. How we would append them to a CSV file is using this with open. You would obviously open the CSV file and then write those values to the bottom. You might have to put the commas back in. I guess you would with the CSV file. And let's see. I thought this was interesting. If your ping fails for some reason, you don't want it to keep appending either null lines or blank lines. So you would check if the length of the data is greater than 0 before writing it out. And then this is just the task scheduler, which I showed in the cron tab format. So I think that's all I got. Was that about 5 minutes? Let's see, stop share. Actually, I'll keep it open. Is there any time for if anyone has any questions or?
Any questions?
Or any feedback or anything? Thanks, Eric. I see that.
I'll throw an idea at you. You're saying that the quote unquote Linux way of doing it is
Yeah.
not preferred. I would challenge you that each of these ways is preferred in a different context. The Linux way is a good, really basic way if all you have is a prompt, right? The Pythonic way will be much easier to read, but there's more writing you have to do to get there, right? So they're as a quick and dirty utility, the command lines can be very powerful. And knowing what you can do with the command line gives you ideas for what to even be looking for in your Python code. So that one deserves more credit than maybe you would have given it credit for.
Great, thanks, Jeffrey.
Any questions?
I kind of joined late, but if I can just make a quick comment that kind of piggybacks off Jeffrey's. I also think that doing it using os.sys means it won't necessarily be cross-platform, but that's not always a concern. If it's a script that you're just going to be using, you know what OS you're running. If you're putting out something in sort of a library, then making it cross-platform might be a bigger concern.